For all my listeners out there who consider themselves a day hiker, like myself, you gotta check out Hike It Off magazine, and it's written exclusively with the day hiker in mind. I seriously love this magazine, and the founder, Jamie, was a previous guest on our podcast, and her story behind the magazine is really phenomenal. It's one of the first magazines to focus solely on day hiking, and they share everything from gear reviews to expert advice, inspiring interviews, in-depth trail coverage, and all things day hiking related. Their mission is to share the good vibe and healing energy of hiking and inspire deep-rooted connection to the outdoors. And I know that's something we can all get behind. Their 100% digital magazine, they want to leave the trees in the forest, of course, is free and it can be downloaded at hikeitofflife.com. All right, let's get into the episode.
Part of being an entrepreneur is learning to go with the flow. I'm not the best at that. I'm very much like, if there's structure, I feel safe. And so while some people might think, oh, it's messy, that's bad. That's what I used to think. And I think that really limited my thinking and limited my potential, because a lot of the time in that messiness, you discover things you are really passionate about. You niche down better in your business. You discover more of your own passions.
Today's guest is Brianna Boney, founder of GnarlyGirl Fitness and Wellness. After graduating with her Bachelor's of Science in Healthy Lifestyles Coaching and receiving her national board certification, Brianna started GnarlyGirl Fitness and Wellness in 2020. She helps female athletes build strong relationships with food, body image, and movement through habit change, sound nutrition, and smart training. She has over 6 years of experience as a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer and is a nutrition coach. Brianna has had the pleasure of working with a large range of mountain athletes, from professionals in their sport to beginners. Brianna enjoys racing mountain bikes competitively, rock climbing, lifting, and eating donuts. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Liz Landine, and this is The Outdoor Entrepreneur. All right. Hey, Brianna, welcome to the show.
Hey, Liz. Thanks so much for inviting me on.
I'm super excited to interview you today. So kick us off with telling us what getting outdoors looks like for you. It's different for everybody. So I love to kind of hear, like, what are your favorite activities? Like, what are the things that are lighting you up right now in the outdoors?
Ooh, this is a great question. I'm multi-sport curious, which means I have a lot of different sports that I love to do, but all of them are outdoors. So as far as right now, living in Las Vegas, Nevada, it's starting to get hot, which means it's Mount Charleston season. So there's a lot of limestone sport climbing up there, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And right now, even though I also mountain bike, that's kind of taking the cake.
That's your jam right now, getting out and rock climbing.
For sure.
Love it. Love it. So I'm curious to learn kind of when, where, how did your interest in the outdoors start? I know you're a very active person. You get outside a lot, but where do you think that kind of initial spark came from? And that could be person, it could be an event, it could be a feeling, whatever it is. But where do you think that first came from?
Yeah, I have to say that I think it's always been in me. Like, as a kid, I used to just disappear in the woods. My dad was in the military and he was stationed in Fort Rucker, Alabama. And at the time I was like, between the ages of 6 and 9, my mom would give me this walkie-talkie, which had a 2-mile range, tell me that I had to be home by sunset. And I'll be honest, I definitely stepped outside of that 2-mile range, but I would ride my bike to the tree line and I would just explore. And honestly, I just loved being in nature. It was so calming. And I really felt like that was the beginning of my love for nature, even though it wasn't sport specific at the time. It really transformed over the years for me.
Yeah, that's great. So I love to hear that. So from a very early age, so I'm curious, has it always stayed that way for you? So did it stay around into your teens and your college days? Like, have you always been into nature and the outdoors? And then also, I know, you are into health and wellness. We'll get into that a little bit more as far as what you do. But Have you always enjoyed the outdoors like since you were a little kid, or has it kind of ebbed and flowed over the years for you?
Yeah, I think puberty, it definitely ebbed. It was not on the flow state. And that's when I was discovering like what was cool. And, I started playing guitar and I thought I wanted to be a rock star. And I'm like, I can't be outside all the time if I'm going to be a rock star. So definitely throughout my high school years, I kind of rejected like that inner child of like wanting to be outdoors all the time. And I think my love for the outdoors really kicked back off in college. Really, I think we always return to that kid us, like for me being a kid and disappearing in the woods. And now that I'm an adult, I don't have to have 2 mile range and a walkie-talkie. So adventures are endless now. But definitely when I was in high school, I kind of thought it was nerdy to be a super outdoorsy person. And I realized I was like, no, this is who I am.
Yeah. So, kind of shifting gears a little bit, where did your journey into entrepreneurship start for you? Have you kind of always been pulled towards working for yourself and kind of life by design and all of that? Have you always been pulled to that? Or was it something that just kind of happened? Or was it more intentional where you purposefully made that happen?
Yeah, great question. I never thought I would be an entrepreneur, to be honest. I grew up with a lot of service members. My dad was in the military. His dad was in the military. On my mom's side, they all also had like more government official type jobs. So being an entrepreneur was kind of like being the ugly duck. Like it's like telling your parents something they really don't want to hear, right? So I swapped from nursing school to healthy lifestyles coaching, and it sounded like an odd major at the time, but it really was focusing on helping women change their lives through habit. And I kept thinking to myself, like, where am I going to do this? Like, where can I work where I feel like I'll have the freedom that they need? And someone said you could work for yourself. And I was like, no, I don't know anything about business. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I could never be an entrepreneur or work for myself. And I think as I was going through school, my ideas started to shift that, wow, this is scary, but I do think it's possible. And I want to hang it out and try my best to really start my own business and make a difference without, having the, I wouldn't say accountability to a company, but being able to make a difference in the ways that I find important instead of working on someone else's agenda. So I think throughout several years of gaining courage, I finally decided to go into business for myself, but it's not a road that I thought I would ever take. My love for adventure it resonates with being an entrepreneur, but there's always that sense of wanting that safety of like knowing where the lines are, like somebody tells you what to do. So it's very cut and dry. Like I'm working 9 to 5 these days. And being an entrepreneur, there are so many things that you can work on, so many things you can do. And the structure part of it, I thought was going to be impossible for me. So really, I think being an entrepreneur has really transformed my work ethic and me as a person, just going down this road. But yeah, it's been a process for sure, and not one that I saw me going through.
Yeah, that's such a great story though, just that it wasn't this like clear-cut path, right? That this was just kind of through trial and error and some exploring and just kind of leading you to this career really that you didn't expect. And I think that's always such an interesting story. So I think you've been able to nicely align kind of your love for the outdoors with your work. You've found a way to kind of make that all happen. So can you tell us more about the work you do as the founder of GnarlyGirl Fitness and Wellness?
Yeah, I have the best job in the world. I didn't know that I could be doing what I'm doing right now. So it still lights me up to talk about. But I work with female athletes who I describe as women who train on purpose, for a purpose. So you don't have to be entering into different championships or anything like that as an athlete. It's just women who train on purpose. So really we work on habits, but I help women improve their relationship with food body image, and movement. So it really takes a holistic perspective of all of these things because they're all interconnected. We work a lot on mindset because you can know as much as you want to about nutrition and still not make it happen. So really my work is working one-on-one with each of my coaching clients on making their own personalized plan, which means me being their partner. So instead of it just being like a coach, like I just directly speak to you and give you all your assignments, really I'm the expert in behavior change, nutrition, and exercise. But they come alongside me because they're the expert in their own lifestyle. So what we do is we create a plan that's realistic, something they can actually do in their life that's going to help them change. So it's highly personalized. Really, my mission is to help women win themselves back. And really what I mean by that is sometimes in life we get distracted with, chasing different things. Maybe it's a career, maybe they're good things that we're chasing, but sometimes we start to let our dreams of our health go as well. We start to let things slide. And especially for the women that I work with, they love being in the outdoors and they love being active. These are women who want to do through hikes. They want to be stronger rock climbers. They want to be better mountain bikers, better hikers, better runners. And so really my work is to help them feel stronger, have more energy, and not have basically all these food rules that we think about. Like we have to eat a certain way to look a certain way, and really dropping all those ideals and making health what it's supposed to be for yourself.
That's incredible. So such important work. And again, I think a really great example of how you've been able to bring together kind of your love of the outdoors and passion for things like rock climbing. And you're really an athlete, but you get to work with people like that as well, whether again, they're kind of competitive or not, they just, are working out on purpose, as you said. So I think it's a great example. So how do you find time to do all the things you love doing? Because I know you have a lot of things that really do bring you joy in your life. And you're also building this incredible business, right? So I know you competitively race mountain biking and you rock climb and you hike and you go on cool trips in your Sprinter van and like all this great stuff. How do you squeeze it all in? And I'm not saying that means you have it all figured out, because most of us don't, but just, how do you squeeze that in, whether it's clear cut or it's messy or whatever it is? Just would love to hear kind of the authentic side of running a business and what that might look like for you.
Yeah, great question. I'm going to be totally honest. I definitely don't have everything figured out with structure, but I do find that I do really well with time allotments, and not everybody works this way. They don't like being interrupted if they're in the flow. But I went from being very much a perfectionist. Things had to be perfect or else. And I really think when I started to grow as an entrepreneur and really as a person was when I let that go and I started to embrace the done is better than perfect. It changed my life, seriously. So when I try and plan out, time for my activities that are important to me, trying to be a competitive mountain bike racer, also climbing at a level that's not frustrating for me, or to maintain the strength that I have. Really, I think it comes from a loose structure of this is the amount of work that I need to get done this week. This is what it's going to take to get me to the next level. I do have planned out like my CEUs for training and my national board certification. So really, I think it's that concept of the big rocks. So the big things are planned out and structured and allotted with that time. But other things like, say, looking at my entire year, so an annual program for me, I'm going to have an off season for mountain biking, which means I get to climb more, which I'm in that phase right now. But you prioritize what's most important. So up until now, it's been structured training for mountain biking and then climbing when I can. And of course, because I am a trainer, I do get nerdy about progress and trying to maintain it with as little training as possible, which is always fun. But really for me, it's kind of a messy process. There are some things that are very clear cut, but I would say about probably 45% of it is kind of messy. And, those are things that I'm still working on as I would say a baby entrepreneur. There's definitely things that I need to get better at. But right now things are working way better than they had the year before. And so part of, I think, being an entrepreneur is learning to go with the flow. And I'm not the best at that. I'm very much like, if there's structure, I feel safe. And so while some people might think, oh, it's messy, that's bad, that's what I used to think. And I think that really limited my thinking and limited my potential, because a lot of the time in that messiness, you discover things you are really passionate about. You niche down better in your business. You discover more of your own passions and realize from mistakes like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have taken a trip in the van to Lake Tahoe this week when I had all this work to do. But then it lights a fire under your butt. If you're someone like me who works really well under pressure, it can kind of spur that creativity. And it can be good and bad, but I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship is you get to make it what you want to make it.
I love that. And it's so true. You touched on two key pieces, one being action over anxiety, done is better than perfect, right? Moving things forward. It's so, so important. And then the second one being just the fact that clarity many times comes through action, right? And that action may be messy. That's totally fine. But as long as you're doing something, yes, you want to, reflect on things, get clear on things as much as you can beforehand. But really, you're going to figure things out by doing things. So by going to Lake Tahoe, right? Maybe when you really shouldn't have, you do figure out though, like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't the best time, but now it's done this, right? So it gives you so much clarity. But also, I just love the practice of done over perfect. I think we've talked about this previously, and I talk about this with clients all the time, is just that, perfect is not real. It's just not real. And especially as entrepreneurs, it's going to be messy. We have to figure things out many times, and that's okay as long as we're consistent and we're persistent with moving things forward. We're going to take a quick break, but I can't wait to learn more from our guest about how they live and love the outdoor entrepreneur life. You know how much I love making time for the things that bring me joy. It's literally a key reason why I created this podcast. It's also why I'm so passionate about doing things that make life easier and allow me to feel more organized, less scattered, and more in control of my time. Come on, doesn't that sound amazing? Well, one way I do that is by getting crystal clear on what I want and mapping out a solid plan of action to make it happen. And I love teaching the simple system to others. Whether you're an experienced entrepreneur or an aspiring one, I help people sort through all the shiny things and mental clutter to get massively clear to make it all happen. So if you're ready to move from dreaming into doing and doing it with ease and flow and organization, then I got you. Go to LizLeanDean.com as soon as this podcast ends to check out my services page, sign up for my monthly newsletter, or you can schedule a free 30-minute clarity call with me. And as a bonus, all podcast listeners receive a special 10% off if you use discount code OUTDOORS at checkout. All right, now let's get back into the episode. What advice would you give to someone maybe who's feeling like they want to start their own business, but they don't believe they can do it, right? You yourself were somebody who never thought you would have your own business. Maybe there's fear that's holding them back from starting, or maybe they've already started and they're looking to kind of elevate and get to that next level in their business. What advice would you give to them to kind of just get them started, get them moving, or get them, to kind of move past the fear?
I'm thinking about perfect answer, but there's not one for this one.
There isn't. There are many
there really
answers.
There are so many. Okay, well, the first piece of advice is entrepreneurship is beautiful and it's very creative. If you're passionate about something, you really want to make money at it and you want to make a difference, go for it. Do not stay where you're staying right now, where you're passionless and you're just waiting for time to go by. But jumping into the journey, it can be lonely. And part of my personal past is like self-help books. I never read those before I became an entrepreneur. But let's be honest, I grew up in a military family. So trying to help yourself, like you're either already good or you're already not good. Like there's not much you can do edgewise. And, it's hilarious to think about now because I've gone through so much of a process with this. But I was convinced that to be an entrepreneur and to really pump out material that was like authentic and just mine, that I had to do everything by myself. Like if I was going to take credit for my work, I had to do everything by myself. If I wanted, my parents to be proud of me for being an entrepreneur, right? Because I'm a little bit of a rebel, but we all want our parents to like have a little bit of pride in us and what we're doing in our life. I thought that was going to come from completely soloing everything. So if you were really thinking about starting a business, my best piece of advice would be to hire somebody to help you, like right off the bat. I didn't do that. And I think I suffered I didn't understand how much to charge. I really didn't understand business structure. And now having hired a coach myself and being part of an amazing group of other female entrepreneurs, it's so helpful to know that you're not alone in this process and to talk about mistakes, things that you mess up. And there's a great quote that you can't live long enough to make every mistake. So learn from others. So I would definitely say my best piece of advice is don't be afraid to invest in your business. You will make your money back. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you can take what they give you and transform it. So that would be my first and biggest piece of advice. And then second, on a very personal level, set boundaries. Like no matter if you're single or if you're married, it's so important to have boundaries because you don't have a boss that's telling you that you can take off on Saturday and Sunday. You have to be your own boss. So setting those boundaries with yourself and setting boundaries with your family. For myself, before I had a business coach, I felt like I was working all the time and I never had a break. And I was always stressed out. And I thought that's how it was supposed to be as an entrepreneur. I'm like, no, I'm doing it right. Like I'm stressed all the time and I'm not sleeping. I'm like, this is definitely how it's supposed to be. Like when I'm like 80 and a billionaire, like I can, tell my kids how hard I worked and how I walked uphill in the snow with no shoes, both ways. But it really doesn't have to be like that. And I think setting boundaries for myself has really helped just with the mental piece of knowing that you're done for the day. Like you may not be done with the entire picture, but you're done for the day. So those would be my two pieces of advice.
Those are awesome. And I agree. I think the conversation around boundaries, we can go on and on about that. That's a whole nother topic, but it's so important because you are your own boss and having unlimited kind of possibility and flexibility and all that is a challenge in its own. Sometimes we think, oh, that's going to be really easy to manage, but it's not. If you want to be successful, right? If you want to have a thriving business, you have to create your own boundaries and boundaries for other people as well. So I think that's a really important message to kind of drive home. So I love that. So each and every one of us, as you've just talked about, we're always a work in progress, right? Life, business, all of that, we're a work in progress. But I'm curious to know, what does slaying it at life and business look like for you in the future?
So this is when the dreaming part comes in. And for me, I see myself slaying it when I've had more passive income. So as of right now, I don't have a whole lot of passive income. I am either coaching one-on-one, which I love and I don't want to let go because it's my favorite part of my job, and then teaching courses. So having the availability of online material that people can just purchase. So I'm working on my one-on-one coaching that's self-paced. And then I'm also working on my Body Love Masterclass as an online course. So theoretically in the future, I would love to have passive income that fully supports me without the addition of me also doing the in-person one-on-ones and the classes. And then, crushing it climbing and crushing it riding outside, being around other really enthusiastic outdoor sports people, outdoors people. There we go. We'll say that. So I think that would be slaying it for me.
That does sound like slaying it. So what are some outdoor locations that you would recommend? Like, do you have any suggestions on like what are must see, must visit locations, or just, some of your favorite places that you've been to and that you really love spending time in?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to start locally and then kind of branch out.
Go for it.
So for anyone listening, my favorite activities are, rock climbing and mountain biking, but I also throw some hiking in there, maybe some water sports. And you wouldn't think it, but Las Vegas has so much to offer. So there's tons of mountain biking out here in Blue Diamond. Red Rock is honestly one of the most amazing places to rock climb. So there's a couple local, like 20 minutes away from my home sites that you really can't miss if you come to Vegas. And then Mount Charleston, it has almost 12,000 feet of elevation. So it has quite a lot of prominence from the desert floor. And when things get really hot, like they are right now, you can just pop up to Mount Charleston and get some altitude training in. You can hike, mountain bike, and also climb. I, for the first time, just went to Lake Tahoe, and I'm kicking myself because I have never been before. So even though it's been a recent trip that I've just made, that, like I said, maybe the timing wasn't the best, but the experiences were amazing. I would definitely recommend going. And it doesn't matter what type of outdoor sport you're into. There's literally something for everyone. So crystal clear, like blue turquoise water if you're into water sports. We went mountain biking on the Tahoe Rim Trail. There was still some snow, which was amazing, and great climbing on granite. So really just a beautiful place. Those are some of my favorites.
Those are all good ones. And some of those are up there for my favorites as well. So, and I love that you threw in some Vegas ones, because so many people come to Vegas, right? And all they see is the Strip, and they have no clue about all the amazing spots, like really, really amazing spots that we have access to, especially if you're into the outdoors, if you're into hiking, biking, rock climbing, anything like that. We've got it here. We're really, really lucky. So those are some really good ones. All right. So as we're kind of wrapping up, where can people find you?
Yeah. So I'm most active on my Instagram. So you can find me at GnarlyGirl Fitness. I do have a TikTok. It's also GnarlyGirl Fitness. There's a theme here. And my website, which is www.gnarlygirlfitness.com. So super easy to find me. Just type that in. And yeah, those are some of the best ways that you guys can contact me.
Awesome. Love the consistent branding.
Yeah.
Make it easy. Good. So, I'm a strategy and action coach, this, and I always like to ask this question on my podcast, but the reason I created this podcast and this show is not just to talk and dream about things, but to really show people how they can combine an income producing job with their love for the outdoors, and to see that it's possible, and that everyday people, just like you, just like me, just like anybody, can do it. Ultimately, I really want to inspire people to take massive action towards their own dreams and their own goals. So with that in mind, I'd love to close out with an outdoor action challenge. So tell us, what's one thing you want people to get out there and do, whether that's in pursuit of becoming an outdoor entrepreneur specifically, or just something maybe more in general, nature outside focused. What's your outdoor action challenge?
Ooh, let's sum it up as do something that scares you. They're both scary, and we don't grow unless we're feeling uncomfortable. And so the challenge, I think, is to lean into the discomfort, because either you're discovering maybe something you need to work on, or you're discovering more potential than you thought you had. So either way, it's really good. It requires resilience, but being an entrepreneur and someone who loves the outdoors, I think those things really go hand in hand. So that's a challenge. Lean into the struggle.
Oh, I love that. And do something that really scares you, lean into it. Yeah. Perfect outdoor challenge. All right. I'm going to keep that in mind this weekend. And it's a perfect place for us to close out. We'll put all the ways our listeners can learn more about you and your work in the show notes. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Brianna. It's been a blast talking with you, and best wishes.
All right. Thanks so much.
Awesome. My goal as a business strategy and action coach, and why I ultimately created this podcast, is to inspire you to take massive action towards your own dreams and goals. So if you're enjoying this podcast and you find the content valuable, like, subscribe, or follow me wherever you get your podcasts. And I always love hearing from my listeners, so please leave a review. And until next time, be sure to live life on your terms. And if you're not, make a plan and make it happen, my friend. Adventure awaits. Thanks for listening.